The city was suffocating under a blanket of fear, and I was the one tasked with pulling it off. My name is Detective Colber, and for 6 agonizing months, I chased a ghost, a phantom who turned childhood innocence into a prelude to horror. He was the nursery rhyme killer, and his calling card was a twisted verse left with each of his victims. It started with a financier found in his high-rise office. Tucked into his pocket was a small, neatly typed card. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. He'd been pushed from his penthouse balcony. It was clean, meticulous, and utterly chilling. We had nothing. No witnesses, no forced entry, no forensic trail to speak of. Just a nursery rhyme and a body. 2 weeks later, it happened again. A baker, known for her generosity, was found in her shop. The ovens were cold, but the scent of gingerbread still hung in the air. On the counter, next to a spilled bag of flour, was the next rhyme. Patter cake, baker's man. The cause of death was poison, baked into her own bread. The city started to panic. The media had a field day. They called him a phantom, a mastermind. To me, he was just a monster hiding behind children's stories. My team and I worked around the clock, our incident room plastered with maps, victim photos, and those dreadful little rhymes. We profiled, we predicted, we chased down every lead, no matter how flimsy. We interviewed hundreds of people, scoured financial records, dug into personal lives. But every path led to a dead end. The killer was a ghost. He left no prints, no DNA, no mistakes, only rhymes. The third victim was a librarian. Mary, quite contrary, was found tucked into a book on horticulture. The fourth was a tailor. Black sheep, a small tuft of black wool placed on his chest. Each scene was a macabre work of art, a puzzle box of pain and poetry. The rhymes weren't random. They were clues, but what were they pointing to? We analyzed the victims' lives, searching for a connection. A financier, a baker, a librarian, a tailor. They were from different walks of life, different parts of the city. There was no overlap in their social circles, no shared business dealings, no common enemies. The only thing linking them was their gruesome end and the rhyme that accompanied it. The pressure was immense. From the commissioner, from the public, from the victims' families who looked to me for answers I didn't have. Every night I'd go home and those rhymes would echo in my head. They were mocking me. Months bled into one another. The body count rose. 5, 6, 7 victims. Each one a fresh wave of grief for the city and a new layer of frustration for me. He was escalating. The time between kills was shortening. He was getting bolder, more confident. The 8th victim was a judge, the 9th a doctor. We were always one step behind, perpetually cleaning up his mess. I started to live and breathe the case. My apartment became a second office, the walls covered in my own frantic scrawls, trying to decipher his twisted logic. I read every book on nursery rhymes, their origins, their hidden meanings. Most were just simple folk tales, but some had darker roots in history, in famine, in rebellion. Was that his message? A historical vendetta? It felt too academic, too detached. This was personal. The rage was palpable at every scene. Then came the 10th victim, a social worker. The rhyme left was, there was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She was found in a dilapidated tenement surrounded by files of her cases, and that's when a sliver of light pierced the darkness. One of her case files was flagged. It was a child welfare case from 15 years ago. A boy, Thomas Miller, was removed from his home due to extreme neglect. His mother was a troubled woman who would lock him in a closet for hours, singing him nursery rhymes to keep him company. Chills ran down my spine. The file detailed the foster care placements, the reports, the court dates. The judge from that case was our 8th victim. The doctor who testified was our 9th. We were finally onto something. We had a connection. We dug into Thomas Miller's life. He'd aged out of the system, fallen off the grid. No social media, no credit cards, no digital footprint. He was another ghost. But the social worker's file gave us one more name, his original case investigator. That investigator was the financier, our first victim. Humpty Dumpty, the man who started the Great Fall. The baker, Her shop was across from the first foster home Thomas was sent to. He'd stare out the window at it for hours. Each victim had played a role, however small, in the tragic story of his childhood. They weren't random at all. They were the cast of his personal tragedy, and he was the director of their final act. We knew his motive. Revenge. Pure and simple. But knowing why didn't tell us where he was. The 11th victim, a gardener, gave us Mistress Mary, quite contrary. He had tended the gardens at a children's home Thomas had lived in for 3 years. We knew there would be a 12th. The pattern was clear. But who? We scoured the old files, looking for anyone else connected to his case. Lawyers, clerks, foster parents we had already cleared. Who was left? Then my sergeant, a young, sharp kid named Evans, pointed something out. "Detective," he said, "look at the rhymes. They aren't just random. They're in alphabetical order." My blood ran cold. He was right. Bar, bar, black sheep, Humpty Dumpty. It wasn't perfect, but there was a loose alphabetical progression. He was counting down. What came after T for there was an old woman? V. We couldn't find a rhyme that fit. I went back to the source, to the very first file. The name of the arresting officer who took Thomas from his mother 15 years ago. A rookie cop, fresh out of the academy, on his first major case. An officer who later testified, who wrote the initial report, who set the entire legal process in motion. An officer who rose through the ranks, became a detective, and was now leading the very task force to find the boy he once tried to save. The 12th rhyme wasn't from a book, it was for me. I was the final piece of his puzzle. Suddenly my phone buzzed, an unknown number. A distorted voice, low and raspy, said, "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are." A pause. "Time to find out, Detective Colber." He knew my name. He knew everything. The call was untraceable, but the message was clear. He was coming for me. But he wasn't a phantom anymore. He was Thomas Miller. And he made a mistake. He got personal. He let his rage cloud his judgment. While my team set up a protective detail around my home, I went back to the case file, to the place it all began. The old apartment building where he grew up. It was condemned now, boarded up and forgotten. A place full of ghosts. I knew he'd be there. It was the only place left for him to go. The stage for his final act. I went in alone, against my captain's orders. This was between me and him. The air was thick with dust and decay. I saw him in the faint light filtering through a grimy window, standing in the doorway of a small closet. He was just a man, no longer a monster. The rhyme he chose for me. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. The stars were what he saw through the keyhole of that closet. It was his only light. In the end, there was no grand confrontation, just a broken man who never escaped that closet. He dropped the small card he was holding, the 12th rhyme, and surrendered. The rhyme stopped. The city could breathe again. But for me, the silence is sometimes the most deafening sound of all. Thank you for joining me on this journey. The shadows of this city hold countless stories. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Stay safe out there.